Welcome to Chapter 5 for Stress Management for Exercise Science and Sports Med and Fitness Technology students. Let me get the PowerPoints going and we will get started. Okay, power perception. All right, so key questions. Is my life really stressful or is it all in my mind? Okay. These are all things we'll answer as we go through. Why does one of my classmates thrive while balancing a full class load, a job, and active social life while another classmate in the same situation burns out? Feel like I'm being pulled in too many directions with no choices, and what can I do about this? All right, I don't go over objectives because that's what we always go over, right? All right, so the power perception. Individuals can have the same experience but with different results, okay, depending on their thinking. So people can learn to think differently, all right? Um, Again, this is one of the things that I stress with you guys as my students is trying to get you to get out of your normal mindsets. Now, it doesn't mean that whatever you're doing is incorrect, but if you'll learn to think in different patterns, learn to look at things from different directions, um, try to understand ideas and concepts from different approaches and challenge those things, then it helps you to solve more problems, and it helps you to be a better problem solver, helps you to help others become better problem solvers, and helps you to help others to be more successful, right? And again, in our jobs, that's how we are successful, by helping others be more successful, right? The way we perceive or interpret events is what causes us to feel stress. Ask yourself if you are in life-threatening danger. Perception or the interpretation of an event is what initiates the fight or flight response. The event itself is not what causes us to experience stress, right? So, um, one of the things, again, this is getting on current topic, right? So, when looking at the George Floyd murders situation that we've been seeing on the news, right? You can look at it in from two different perceptions, right? So, you know, as a non-black male seeing that, you could look at the same event. You think, okay, well, that wouldn't happen to me because I've never had any run-in with the police, so on and so forth. So you see that event and you may not feel necessarily threatened by that. Yet if you're a black male and you've had run-ins and you've had police that maybe have treated you differently because of the color of your skin in the past, and you see that event, you see that this man is subdued on the ground, and at that, at the point of the video of where we get to see it, you know he's he's in a position of where he's not resisting, he's not fighting, he's not in. The police officer continues to put pressure on him, and you see him die throughout the event of this video. And again, because the perception that you have from your life experience as a black male versus a non-black male is vastly different. And you see the same event and one, and this is what I've had, conversations with my friends that are black males, is that they see this and they can put themselves in that place and say, that could have very easily been me placed in that situation where maybe, me as a white male, being that I've never had necessarily any run in with a police officer, I've never been profiled or anything like that. Um, I don't see that same threat, right? And it's two different perceptions, right? And so, and that's why that when we see this, and we, again, I'm challenging myself to understand my friends who are black, and the color of their skin has led to uh, different experiences they've had with police than I've had. It changes my perception. It changes me to understand the stress that they feel watching that same video as when I watched it the first time. And again, when I watched it the first time, it bothered me and I was disgusted by it, and it made me angry that that would happen. But the threat, not feeling any threat to my life is different than what they feel, right? That's a different component. They see that same thing, it makes them angry, makes them disgusted. We both agree that it should not have happened, but because the perception of their life events and what they've been through, and the perception of my life events and what I've been through, this same thing has some different weight, right? And it has a different stress, right? My friends, they feel more stressed because of that than what I feel. Okay. And so the event is not any different. We both witnessed the same event, but our perception is different. And it's one of those things that through this, I've been able to get a different perspective and understand these different perceptions. Okay. The world is not a stressful place. No event in life is inherently stressful. Instead, we interpret events as stressful. Now, again, it depends on the events, right? Life-threatening events are stressful. I mean, that would be very stressful, right? But again, if we take a typical stressful event, you know, uh, and again, this again is going to depend on where you're at, right? So if you got like a medical bill that's $1,000, if you're a millionaire or something like that, not that stressful. If you're making like 500,000 a year, more stressful than the millionaire, but still not that stressful. You're making 100,000 a year, gets more stressful. You're making 50,000 a year, makes more stressful. You're making 30,000, 20. As we get down to, folks that make less money, that now, because of the amount of money that they have and the amount of money that they're able to, in percentage to what they make and what they have, it becomes a much more stressful event, right? And so again, that's a different perception based on their circumstances. Okay, so what is cognition? How do we use it? Cognition, a mental process that consists of thinking and reasoning skills. Right. So again, we can restructure our cognition, right? The way that you think, the way that you thought when you're 10 years old was different than the way that you thought when you're 20, same when you're 30, 40. You look at every decade, the life experiences you go through, the things that you've learned, the experiences you've had will change your cognition. Okay. So the way that you think and the way that you reason through things, and the skills that you've acquired will change. There's still some things that maybe you still do that you've done for decades. There's some things that you've got new skills, and sometimes you mix and blend those together. Cognitive appraisal is our interpretation of a stressor, right? So how do you see that particular stressor? Again, think about how much money you had when you're 20, maybe when you're 30, when you're 40. If you've consistently had much better, like your career path has grown through those different times, right? So at 20, 30, and 40, a $500 medical bill or something like that, will have a different cognitive appraisal. again, along with the life experience and so on and so forth, right? Cognitive distortion, the process in which perceptions become magnified out of proportion to their seriousness. This is where, you might, when you watch somebody react to some type of stress in their life, and you feel it's above and beyond what that stress deserves, you'd say they're overreacting, right? So again, if we go back to the example of the billionaire, you got a billionaire and millionaire on down, and there's $1,000 medical bill, and the billionaire just throws a fit and starts throwing a like crying, throwing a temper tantrum, something like that, because this bill is outrageously too high. You know how am I going to pay that? And, they just lose their mind. You would say that'd be some pretty serious cognitive distortion, right? Um, Whereas you had somebody that makes, like maybe 30,000 a year, maybe even acting somewhat similar. I don't know, throwing a tantrum like a 2-year-old seems like cognitive distortion, even for somebody that would be in, like have a much higher amount of difficulty paying that bill off. It's still, I would say that'd probably be cognitive distortion, but I'd say less in comparison to the other person, right? So again, when you think of a teenager that their girlfriend or boyfriend breaks up with them, and they just lose their mind, say this is the end of the world, they can't go on, they can't live without this person. It's a cognitive distortion. And again, when you're older, you look back and you say, those are things we've all been through, done that. You move on, you find somebody new, so on and so forth. But again, at that time, it seems more serious to them. And again, it's because their life skills, their reasoning and cognitive skills and things like that aren't near as developed and matured as somebody who's lived a longer life and gone through more events. Okay, so again, this is where cognitive restructuring comes in. So cognitive restructuring refers to the mental act of changing the meaning or our interpretation of the environmental stressors in life, also called reframing. Entails first awareness, correction of stressfulness and erroneous thoughts, right? So again, this is one of those things, I was kind of sharing, like sometimes people be texting back and forth, and then somebody sends a text, and then the other person doesn't text back, right? And so they, they think, okay, man, did I say something wrong? Did I offend them? Did I make them mad? Do they not want to be my friend? They start spiraling, right? And then eventually that person texts back and they're like, hey, sorry, got busy doing dishes. Hey, sorry, got busy, had to, somebody came to the door, whatever else, right? And then this happens again and happens again and happens again. And every time that there's a pause in their texting, they go through that same thought process of, did I make them mad? Did I say something wrong? Are we not friends anymore? So on and so forth. And you go through and you go through and you go through, and that keeps happening. Again, that's cognitive distortion, right? So the restructuring would be that, after this has happened, some, like maybe like once or twice or whatever, they start to reframe. Hey, this person's usually really good about texting me back, instead of thinking, okay, I said something, now they don't want anything to do with me. So they're aware that this has happened, right? So then they try to correct themselves. In the past, every time this has happened, they were interrupted and were not able to finish their texting conversation with me. Okay, so they start to correct their mind pattern. Okay, so they look at past events, evidence of what has happened in the past. They look at the current climate of what they were typing and thinking, hey, there's nothing in here that would cause a rift. Okay, they tell themselves, give this person time to get back to me. And again, they get back to them at some point. So then when it happens again, and again, it's one of these things they start to restructure, where eventually when there's a pause in the texting, they're not worried anymore. They're like, oh, probably something has happened, and they are now, their attention is elsewhere. Okay. Hardiness. Hardy individual is someone who views potentially stressful events as interesting and meaningful, right? So, you have some people that when they see a puzzle or something, they look at it like, oh man, this is impossible. There's 1,000 pieces or whatever it is. You can never do that. It's too much, right? A hardy person looks at that as, okay, I think I could do that. Maybe they've never even done a puzzle or done a puzzle that big, but they're looking at it and thinking, okay, I can do that. They see that there's a challenge there, right? And so they're committed to, okay, I'm going to dump this puzzle out and I'm going to finish it, right? That's somebody that just naturally has a hardiness to them, or through life events they've developed that. They see change as normal and as an opportunity for growth, right? So, every time something changes in their life, they're not thrown, they don't feel like the boat is sinking. They just accept, hey, this is change, this is different, this is something that we'll get through, or what, this is, like, look at what we're going through with the coronavirus, right? They keep talking about this new normal. Some of us are, think, to an extent, we're like, what new normal? I don't want a new normal. I want to go back to normal. What's this new normal you talk about? I don't like it. Right? There's a possibility we might be wearing face masks for who knows how long out in public. Maybe that'll become something that, I don't know, 10, 20 years down the road, we're still wearing face masks, so it may be something we embrace, you know, there's, one of the things I started looking at was, at first, I got a face mask that I had to wear. Now I'm starting to think, well, if this is going to be around a while, I want to go find a face mask that I want to wear. If this is going to become an article of clothing like my other clothes, where I go and pick clothes that I like to wear, and you know, so, I actually went shopping there online the other day, and I found one that's a face mask that looks like Darth Vader. I'm like, hey, that's kind of my style, right? So, yeah, it's something that, I'm adjusting. I'm not saying I'm a hardy individual, but this is just me. It's like I see things, and then I'm like, okay, well, I got to adjust. If this is how it's going to be, then this is how it's going to be, and let's go forward, right? We see that with technology. You have people that, as technology grows and changes, they grow and change with it. And then you have some folks that just, man, they're like, I'm not going to learn how to do that, and then they get left behind. Eventually they have to, and you're trying to catch them up to speed, right? And again, um, you want to, if you want to be hardy, you have to be somebody that constantly rolls with the change, and that you want to be capable of having an influence on events. So you want some control in that, right? So again, if things are going to move, towards certain things, you got to take some ownership of learning how to be a part of that, right? You look at folks that at first, when Zoom came out, they're like, I'm not going to do Zoom meetings. I don't want anything to do with that. And, now we all have to Zoom, right? And, again, I'm recording this on Zoom, and I've learned how to use a lot of the things now. Don't judge me on how long it took for my thing to kick over. It's not my fault. The computer I have in my office is junk. It is what it is. All my other ones, when I was in quarantine at my home computer, moves much faster and smoothly. Okay, this one, I don't know. It's got processing speed of, like a sundial. It doesn't move in milliseconds and things like that. You have to use a calendar to figure out how fast it's going to move, rather than, like a wristwatch. Anyways, being able to learn and adapt to the changing world around you, right? And again, that's where we're at here. So far, you guys as students have been very hardy in being disrupted from our normal pattern of learning to go into this, right? And things may change again. We may start moving back to more on campus, but that's going to be different than how it was before. So there's going to be some adaptation to being back on campus and following specific guidelines on campus that were not in place prior to you leaving, right? Commitment, turn problems into opportunities, finding meaning and purpose through life-changing experience, affect perception, and ultimately the quality of life, right? So again, when you see a problem, and that's really what all problems are, they're an opportunity, right? You get a flat tire is an opportunity for you to learn how to fix a flat tire, right? Again, um, I've I've never had enough money where I can buy a new house, or a brand, like a brand new house or a newer house, so to speak. Most the houses I've bought, I've got them for really good deals because they needed a lot of work. And so because of the stressor of not ever making much money, I've turned many problems into opportunities in the fact that I can do a lot of home construction. I can rewire homes, I can redo the plumbing, I've put in floor, put in tile, um, you know, baseboards fixed, like put in fans, lights, switches, replace doors, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, I've done a little bit of everything by now. Um, you know, uh, Inside and outside. I've had to fix and repair a lot of things. And so this stressor of not ever having enough money to go purchase a brand new home, which has been, like recently made and well made and so on and so forth, has become an opportunity for me to learn, skills that, and again, it's come in handy because, a lot of skills I've learned because of not being able to purchase a new home. When something breaks at my home, a lot of times I'm able to fix it. Or my friends, when something breaks, guess who they call, right? And I go over there and help them fix it. And again, before getting into home ownership and all these things, it wouldn't be something I would have been able to do because growing up, it was not one of those. My dad was not one of those guys that fixed things. He always had friends that could do it, he called to have somebody come and fix it, and that's how it was. And so I've been opposite, where I've learned to DIY, or DI. Was it DIY? I'm just throwing at letters, right? DIY, right? Do it yourself. So challenge, view change as a challenge rather than a threat. Either resist and fear change, or embrace it and see new opportunities for growth in it, right? Um, so we can either try to, like stand still, not move, not do anything, and hope nothing changes, or that the change will come and go, or that it won't affect you, or you just embrace it. You say, look, here's what's coming, it's changing. Let's see what we can do about it, right? So again, you can look at personal trainers. So if you were one of those personal trainers that never really got on to the online personal training and all that, and then the coronavirus hit, right? Now you could have said, okay, well, I'm just going to wait it out and I'll go back to just training at my gym when it opens up. Well, you might have been sitting for several months. And waited and waited and waited, and you're not making any money, right? Or you might have saw this, oh, hey, this thing's going to, when we first heard about, I think the initial thing was, this could be like this for the next couple of weeks to a month. You might have embraced the change. You started an Instagram account. All your former clients are like, hey, follow me on this. I'm going to start giving you guys home workouts and doing stuff so that you guys can stay healthy during the virus. I'll post videos. I'll put everything online. And you move to being an in-person trainer to an online trainer, right? And then as things open back up, now you've got the challenge, well, do I just stay completely online, or do I start doing some hybrid stuff? Do I start, doing some things online, some things in person, and mixing them again, more opportunities for growth. Culture connection, fear of failure. If you fear failure, you're under a kind of constant slow burning stress that can deplete your energy and corrode your health. If you can learn to see your failures as opportunities to learn and grow, the danger's gone, the stress evaporates, right? Fear of failure Again, we see this in sports. These are the folks that don't want the ball at the end of the game because they don't want to fail themselves and fail their teammates, right? And again, they're not the most reliable players on the team, to help you win games and help you win championships, where somebody else who revels in the challenge and doesn't fear, hey, if I make it, you know, awesome. That's what I want. That's what I'm striving for. That's what I practice all the time. But if I don't, I'm not afraid of the failure. I'll learn from that and do better next time, right? That's where we see success in sports. That's where people see success in business. Um, you know, Again, I'm not talking about people that just come up with harebrained ideas about starting businesses all the time. But again, when you look at top athletes, Kobe Bryant, is a good example. That the man practiced and practiced and practiced and worked and worked and worked, and he was also not afraid of failure. And yes, he did fail, but again, he put in the time. A lot of thought went into what he did. A lot of hard work went into what he did. Again, if you don't want to be one of those folks that's like, you know hey, let's try this and try this and try this and not any thought, because again, you're not learning from the failure, right? So again, when you fail, you want to regroup, reevaluate, look at it. Okay, so how do we turn the failure into a success? Control, believe that you can directly impact a situation. There are some things in life over which we have no control, right? A friend of yours gets in a car accident and dies. That's something that you had no control over, right? Those things do happen. They are stressful, and we all go through something like that at some point in our lives. Um, but there are things that we do have total control over, and some things that we have some control over. So your reaction, your actions and reactions to situations, you have control over. The situation itself, you may have little control over or zero control over, depending on what the situation is, right? So, for example, you're in a dispute with somebody, right? Well, you had control over getting into that dispute, okay, in the first place, or at least you had some control. Maybe somebody was really wanting to pick a fight with you, but you may have had some control over what transpired up until the point you're now thinking about what you're going to do next. Now, at this point, you have total control over this person just said something to you. What will you do next, right? You have total control over what you will do next. Okay, again, um, somebody saw you, decided they wanted to come over and yell at you for whatever reason. You may have had zero control over them and their decision to do that at the beginning. But as things have progressed, you now have gained more and more control over what is going to happen, right? And so, again, there's certain things that are completely out of control, certain things that you have slight control, and other things, again, your reaction to things is always under your control. Self-limiting beliefs. In many instances, we have a much greater control than we realize. Premature cognitive commitments. We commit prematurely to an inaccurate belief about ourselves. When we're highly motivated, we take control and prevent events from initiating the stress response. So again, a lot of times we feel like we don't have control over things. And again, with cognitive restructuring, with going through certain life events, we learn over time and over working on ourselves that there are things that we do have more control over than we used to think, right? And again, if we're highly motivated, we can take control. Okay. So again, you look at somebody that's, maybe training to be a firefighter. So, you know, maybe at one point they were in a situation where their neighbor's house caught on fire and they didn't know what to do. They didn't feel like they had any control over the situation. They didn't know how to go in and save anybody or something like that. And so they felt like there's this massive stressful event going on and these people's house is burning down and they're hoping somebody can go in and save people in there, but they felt like they couldn't do it. Now that they've gone through firefighting school, they were trained, they've been on the job for several years. Another neighbor has a house fire. Again, they now have been trained. They know what to do, what not to do. They know how to go in and assess the situation to see if it's safe to move people in and out. They have more control, right? So again, you know, when we talk about self-limiting beliefs, a lot of times those things happen because we just don't have any experience in that, right? So one of the things to do is to educate yourself and give yourself more experiences, and it will a lot of times take care of that self-limiting belief, right? Knowing that, hey, you know, one of the things you always can think of is, like if you see something, you're like, man, I don't know if I can do that. First thing to yourself, do you know anybody that can do that, or people that have done that? And and then start thinking more clearly, like, well, what's different about them than me, right? And then if you find yourself having a whole lot of similarities with people that have accomplished the same thing in the past, and you realize that, at this moment in time, when you're faced with this situation, that you're actually, maybe you even have even more capabilities than somebody that was able to successfully go through that. You shouldn't limit yourself in thinking you can't do it, right? Just because, just kind of a thought process example that you can go through. All right. So locus of control, the extent to which we believe that we control events that affect us. People with internal locus of control see themselves as responsible for the outcomes of their own actions, right? So these are folks that own everything they do, right? Good or bad, they own it. People with external locus of control believe whatever happens to them is unrelated to their own behavior, making it beyond their control. So these are a lot of times you can look at the second group as folks that maybe have like a victim mentality, right? That things always happen to them, right? They're always the victim of something. They're a victim of bad grades because their teachers are out to get them. They're a victim of they're a victim of, say, like we deal with this a lot in fitness and weight loss, right? Some people feel victimized as they can't ever get in good shape because they have bad genes. Their genetics are bad. For some reason there's no way their body can ever lose weight. The calorie deficit, schmallery deficit is not going to work for them, right? They believe that things will happen to them no matter if they get into a workout routine, they start trying to eat better, it's out of their control, it's not going to work, it's not going to happen. Or somebody else who maybe is in the same situation of being overweight and stuff, they look at it, they're like, you know what, it's time for me to take control of my life. I'm going to start working out, I'm going to hire a personal trainer, I'm going to learn about nutrition, I'm going to take better care of myself, right? Internal locus of control. Self-efficacy is the belief in our ability to accomplish a goal or change a behavior, right? So again, this is another issue we deal with weight loss and or accomplishing, fitness goals like running a 5K, 10K marathon, is that you believe that, okay, this is something I've never done before, but with enough hard work, I will accomplish that, right? And somebody that thinks that way has high self-efficacy. Somebody that's like, well, I'll do it, but I really don't think it's going to work for me, is going to have low self-efficacy. Okay. So power of positive thinking, right? So again, as this is one of those things some people think are somewhat cheesy, but it really does hold true. Okay. um, you can have control over your life. Now, again, you can't have control over every aspect, but like I said, you can have control over how you react to events, right? So events come and go, and you act and react to them. You can get farther in life if you have a hopeful outlook, which again is true. If you think bad things are going to happen, you can self-actualize bad things. It's just, you ever met folks, like that have Eeyore personalities and their life is very Eeyore-ish, like bad things always happen to them, right? It's self-fulfilling prophecy. Again, if you always, even going through the coronavirus, if you believe you're going to come out of this bigger and better than ever, you probably will. If you have a hopeful outlook that, life will get to, that there's, maybe you're stuck, when you're stuck in the middle of it and you really couldn't leave except to go to the grocery store or whatever, if you had a hopeful outlook that things would start to open up, look, things are starting to open up. If you have a hopeful outlook that, hey, I'll be able to go on vacation again soon, looks that way, right? You can create your own luck. Now, luck is a bad thing to look at. I mean, it's, luck is based on chance, but if we're going to look at this more in those type of talking terms, then yes, you can create your own luck, right? So, the more, it's like some people feel like, man, I'm unlucky, I'll never find my dream job. Well, if you're only applying, like if there's 100 jobs out there and you only applied to 3 jobs, say there's 100 jobs that would be in your realm of something that would be your dream job or lead to your dream job. And you apply to 1 or 2 or 3, there's a good chance out of those 1, 2, or 3, you get none of them, right? And so then you're like, oh yeah, I'll just never move ahead. Where somebody else who wants to create their own luck, wants to have a hopeful outlook, man, they're going to apply to all of them. Even if it's like, okay, this isn't necessarily the job I want, but I see this job leading to that job. Again, hopeful outlook, right? So they see this one as like, hey, I go work here for a couple of years, or maybe that dream job exists in that company. So either they can move out of that company at some point and apply, or the dream job does exist in that company and they feel they can work their way up, right? So again, they can create their own luck. The only person who can change you is you, right? And this is something that you have to have these conversations with your clients, especially when they're trying to, do weight loss or muscle gain or whatever else. And you sound like, I can tell you everything to do. I can stand here and give you and encourage you while we work out and do all those other things, but I can't lose the weight for you, right? You're the one that's got to put in the work. You're the one that's got to change your dietary habits. You're the one that, even when we're not working out, has to be more active in your lifestyle. You got to do you, right? You got to take care of you. And then again, if you believe in yourself and have faith in your abilities, you're going to have a much greater chance of seeing more success than failure. And then putting it all together. Is this stressor real, right? Is this a real stress? And again, a lot of times, if it's a stress, it's a stress. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't constitute something real as or real or fake, but is this a legitimate stress that, like you can, is it, really, is it something that you need to be stressing about or not? And again, when I say stressing, I'm not saying like, like worrying, but like, is this something that it's a stress and you've got to come up with, you really got to work on overcoming it and dealing it? Or is this something that's really, it, it seems stressful, but it's not something that's going to take much effort, or it may not even take any effort on your time. It's just going to move past on its own, right? And again, can you handle the situation? Right? If you always believe you can handle the situation, more than likely you will. And can I think about this differently? Again, it's getting that different perception, right? So, sometimes taking a walk around the area and looking from all angles gives you a better perspective and changes your perception of what the real stress is and how you can go about remediating the issue, right? Um, so here's a out of control research highlight. Men working 25 or more years in a demanding job where they felt they had little control had higher blood pressure at work and home than those who felt they had more control, right? So again, people that feel out of control feel the stress more, right? And their physiological stress, they feel it not only mentally but physiologically, right? So in conclusion, perception or interpretation is the first step towards stress response activation. Most of us are actually in real danger less than 1% of the time, and therefore rarely need the stress response for protection. By changing how we interpret events, we can prevent the stress response from activating, or at least alleviate it from getting too heavy. And preventing unnecessary stress will promote health, improve quality of life, and prevent disease. Again, we're not doing the labs that they have in here because I got much better labs for you guys. And so that's that. All right, I'm stopping the recording and we'll do chapter 6 tomorrow.